guys, Mike from MCUReview here, and I hope you're ready for this episode. We're talking about one of my favorite Marvel movies, Guardians of the Galaxy. I have, loved this movie as much as any other Marvel fan, but me and Tom, the other person on this channel, who you'll see in videos pretty soon, were a little divided on Guardians when it came out. Particularly what we thought it was going to make, how much money we thought Marvel's riskiest venture was going to pull in. Neither of us are experts by any means in the box office, but we both had pretty good ideas, and we were trying to think about all the factors that would be able to, give us a good idea. And don't worry, neither of us sat there and said, well, considering it's CGI characters, it's an unknown property, blah 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 blah, the movie's gonna make $300 million. we weren't that foolish. I know everybody in hindsight's like, why did I say it'd make $300 million? Some people did guess it a little more accurately. Myself, I put Guardians at 600,000. I thought, it would probably make 680,000 or 680 million. Sorry, I didn't think it would pass cap. 680 was like the about number that I gave it. Tom, on the other hand, he said, I think it'll hit 800 million. He said maybe $1 billion at some points, but the number he was banking on was 800 million. Now, if you don't know, at this point, Guardians has already made $633 million. Yes, that number is correct. I just checked my little cheat sheet. And that's a massive number. It's still short of passing Thor: The Dark World in international gross, but it's getting pretty high up there. And I don't know how many viewers watching this know, the movie is not yet debuted in Italy or China. Now, China, huge country, huge opportunity for movies to do well there. It's probably going to get at least 50 million there. Very conservative estimate, it's going to hit 50 million in China. Let's compare it to Captain America, The Winter Soldier, and Thor: The Dark World. Two Marvel movies making about the same range. You're talking 600, 700 million. And the two Phase 2 movies, or the two Marvel Cinematic Universe movies that are closest to Guardians in release date. I'm not going to talk about Iron Man 3 here, because that is the Iron Man trilogy. It was the third movie in the Iron Man trilogy. It had the advantage of coming off of Guardians. I think, for comparison's sake, Guardians is definitely, coming off of Avengers, sorry. I think, for comparison's sake, Guardians is definitely a little closer to Thor 2 and Captain America in terms of gross, in terms of how it's going over. It is particularly close to Captain America 2 when you look at, the big summer movie, came out the same year, yeah, both got great reviews. But Thor 2 made 55 million in China. Now, Guardians of the Galaxy is performing similarly to Thor 2 in a place like Germany. Thor 2 made 20 million in Germany. Guardians has already made 19 million, whereas Cap only made 12 million in Germany. From what I've talked to of, Germans themselves, sci-fi and fantasy go over pretty well in their country. Seems reasonable. Thor and Guardians have a sci-fi fantasy aspect. And I'm not gonna speak to anything about Cap with Germany, but it's not sci-fi or fantasy, so it didn't perform as comparably. So I think that Guardians would at least be a little close to Thor 2. You could go the 55 million route in China, or it's a very popular movie, getting great reviews. If it performs similarly to Cap 2 in China, and I don't know of any particular bias in the Chinese towards sci-fi or fantasy like Germany, it would make 100 million. Cap 2 made 115 million in Germany. Now, I'll let you do the math for yourself. If you just add 100 million to what Guardians has now, that's 733 million right there. Cap the Winter Soldier only made 714 million. That would make Guardians the third highest grossing Marvel movie, assuming you made 100 million in China. Hard to say. If you want a little more information, let's look at how Godzilla, a summer movie, did in China. That movie, which is still playing, opened up recently to 37 million in China, and now has 77 million in China. So, if Guardians does similar to that, you know, if there's a similar demand to Godzilla, it'll make at least 77 million. Godzilla will probably pull in a little more, and Guardians will probably pull in a little more over its time. So I don't think 50 million is a reasonable estimate for what Guardians will make in China. But even if it is, that puts Guardians pretty close to 700 million already. It's going to probably pull in another 3 million by the end of this weekend. I think that's that's probably about the range that I'll be in. And it'll pull in a little more over this weekend because it came out in Japan. And while Marvel movies don't do that well in Japan, it's still pulling in a little bit from there. From other foreign territories, it probably is a little more to go in Germany, etc., etc. So even if it lowballs in China, it's still going to make almost 700 million there. And in Italy, Cap 2 made 9 million and Thor 2 made 11 million. So it'll probably get like 10 million off of Italy. I mean, any way you break it down, this movie's saying 700,000. But the big factor will be how well it performs in China. And that is yet to be seen, but I would not bank on 55 million. I think it would make at least what Godzilla has now, being, you know, a better reviewed movie than Godzilla, and certainly, you know, fairly similar. It's not like a comedy. It is kind of a comedy. It's not, but you know, it's not like a different genre of movie. Even though Godzilla is not a direct comparison to other Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, I think that number is kind of realistic for what it'll make. Cap 2 would be a little close prediction what it would make. So I was kind of close. I didn't think it would be Cap 2. You add up the numbers, we'll see what it does in China. It looks like Guardians probably will be Cap 2. Will it hit the 800 million that Tom predicted? Well, if it trickles in another 3 million domestically this weekend, and then a little bit more domestically, as well as just some various other foreign territories like Germany still coming in, Japan, you know, other countries where it might still be playing like Russia and everywhere else that debuted. You know, let's say that'll bump it up to around 650 million. It gets 10 from Italy. That's 660 million. And then if it gets at least 60 million in China, that's 720 million right there. That's enough to beat Cap. So, I mean, I don't know what to say besides, you know, this movie is a behemoth. I mean, people are loving it. Audiences love it. I'm sure if you guys are watching this, you loved Guardians. If you didn't, you know, that's cool. Weigh in. Your opinion is valuable too. But it's gonna hit up there. And the notable achievements is almost past Thor 2: The Dark World. Like I said before, if it manages to pass Cap, it'd be the third highest grossing Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, behind Iron Man 3 and Avengers. It will almost guaranteed in its longevity pass Man of Steel's 668 million international total, and if it passes Cap, it'll pass The Amazing Spider-Man 2, that has 708 million, and I think The Amazing Spider-Man, the first one, has somewhere in the ballpark of 730, 740 million. So, depending on how it goes over in China, it could beat that too, and it would definitely be one of the highest grossing comic book movies ever, behind only the likes of the original Spider-Man trilogy, Iron Man 3, Avengers, The Dark Knight Rises, and it's all I can think of off the top of my head. Oh, Days of Future Past is 745 million, whereabouts. I'm sorry guys, there's a lot of numbers going through my head, but I think Days of Future Past is at like 745. So it could beat that too. Last Stand is pretty high up as well. So it's probably going to make one of the top 10 highest grossing comic book movies. I know I'm rambling on a little bit, so I am going to cut the video short pretty soon. But I find it interesting to speculate as to what Guardians is going to make. I like looking at movies' grosses and trying to predict how they will fare. and it certainly looks like Guardians is going to fare pretty well.